"Hey, Neil," I called to the guy sitting at the bar. "I rarely see you here." "Oh, hi, Rich," he responded somewhat sullenly. "I don't go to pubs often, but today is an exception." He didn't look too happy, but the pub wasn't particularly cozy either. So what should I say? He was clearly upset about something. "What's up, buddy?" I asked him carefully. Neil wasn't really a good friend of mine or anything like that, and to be honest, other than a couple of parties and other such events, I didn't see him much. But his wife, Judy, and my wife, Corinne, were close friends, so I knew, or at least thought I knew, a lot about what was going on in their lives. "It's okay, Rich," he continued sadly, barely looking into my eyes. "I don't blame you for anything. It's not entirely your fault." "What? What? My fault?" I had no idea what he was talking about. "What are you talking about, Neil?" I asked carefully, not wanting to upset him even more. But instead of answering, he simply sat there, resting his chin on his clenched fists in front of him, and sighed heavily. "Well, buddy, what happened?" I was genuinely worried about Neil, who was usually the life of the party, but I also wondered why I seemed to be involved in his grief. "Of course it's Judy," Neil said. "She's your damn wife, too." This amazed me. At that time, Corinne and I had been married for a little over 10 years. I was over 40, and she was a little under. We were, it seemed to me, such a perfectly matched couple that we almost knew each other's thoughts. I can't say I was too happy about some guy I barely knew talking about my wife like that. "What do you mean?" I asked firmly, trying to keep my anger under control. "Come on, Rich." He looked at me with displeasure. "Don't pretend you don't understand anything. You know perfectly well what's going on." Something happened. "What the hell is this? What is he talking about?" "I don't know what you're talking about, Neil," I said, deliberately trying to sound calm, aware of how upset he was. "Oh no, Rich," he almost spat. "And I don't think you know anything about the golden flower." I just shook my head in denial. I've never heard of such a place. Sounded like a Chinese restaurant or something. I hoped that he would continue, but in vain. After finishing the remaining beer, he stood up, looked at me angrily, and left the pub without saying a word, leaving me standing there with feelings seething inside. "What is he talking about, Rich?" asked Fred, the owner of the establishment, approaching me. "God knows, Fred," I replied. "Better give me a pint of the best. Looks like I need to think about it." I sat there, holding my pint, wondering what it all meant, and the one thought that kept nagging at me was perhaps the most unpleasant. But what are Judy and my wife doing that upsets Neil so much, and why the hell does he think I know all this? And Lord, what does a Chinese restaurant have to do with this? No idea, let's forget about it for now. I'll ask Judy myself when I see her later. But I had a bad feeling that things wouldn't be that simple. "Have you ever heard of a Chinese restaurant called Golden Flower?" I asked Fred, but he couldn't help me and didn't know any more than I did. I walked home that evening, deeply puzzled, wondering what to say to Corinne, having no idea where the damn Chinese restaurant was, and also doubting whether I would get a truthful answer. "Hello, dear. Did you have a good day at work?" Nothing strange about that, right? I figured when I got home, I'd find her crying or something. "So, I replied. "Went for a drink at the Red Lion." "Okay," she continued, smiling at me. "You work hard and deserve a drink every now and then." Neil was there, I mentioned casually, and I wasn't sure if I noticed how she tensed a little. "He seemed a little upset," I continued, and this time I couldn't help but notice how her face lost its smile for a moment. "What about that order you've been chasing, Rich?" Corin asked, clearly trying to change the subject. "Any idea why he's so upset?" I asked, again returning to the topic of conversation. "No," Corinne replied, turning away from me. "You told me about the order." "No, I didn't tell you," I objected. "We talked about Neil." Corinne looked at me with annoyance, said she didn't know why Neil could be unhappy, turned and disappeared upstairs without saying a word. Crap, what about my dinner? I don't think it was the most important thing I was thinking about at that moment. I shook. I knew it, she knew it, and we didn't talk about it. I tried to pretend nothing happened, and Corinne tried to pretend everything was fine. What a nightmare. What a terrible week it has been. I was denying the obvious, and Corinne, well, I don't know. I didn't know it then, and I don't know it now. I don't know why, but I decided to search for all the Chinese restaurants in the area and didn't find one with a name like Golden Flower. I didn't dare ask her, and I admit it. You may think otherwise, but when the woman you love and adore seems to be hiding something from you, then the only thing you want to do is hide yourself. Believe me, this is how it is if you love her enough. Did you find that Chinese restaurant you were looking for, Rich? Fred, the pub owner, asked me as I sat sadly in his bar a week or so later. Found him? No, Fred, I replied. I looked through all the directories, but there is nothing like it in the area. Have you checked out the clubs and lounge bars? He asked. Of course I didn't check. There's a place with that name in the city center, he told me. Maybe it's a little posh for people like you and me, Rich, he joked. But apparently it's a place where some people like to show up. Well, this piqued my interest, as you can probably imagine. I needed to find out where it was. An hour later, I found myself parked outside the establishment, with dim lighting and an intimate atmosphere. Well then, I half expected that I wouldn't be allowed in, but there was no problem, even though I was clearly in the wrong attire for the party and dinner. But it was early. I found myself in what appeared to be a bar lounge. What is it? To be honest, I didn't really know myself. But as I looked around, I found that it was a pretty swanky place, with a bar, a small dance floor, a few private booths, and the like. This is the kind of place you can go to meet women. Except there were no women there. It's a little early for the ladies, explained my apparently personal bartender. They usually show up after 10 p.m. or so. I can wait, I assured him. It's worth it, he added. I took a sip of my drink and wondered what to say next. The decision was not complex. Is the woman named Corinne Walters still coming here? I asked, as casually as possible. There are a couple of Corins, he replied. What does she look like? Blonde, I replied, trying to remain calm even as my heart raced. About 5'4", good legs, average build, decent chest. Comes with a redhead, he specified. Probably, I replied, shocked that I had hit the mark so quickly. Judy was truly a redhead, and there aren't many of them like that. I nodded in agreement. Even though I was seething with anger, I still tried to keep my cool. Yes, he continued. Comes almost every Wednesday night, and sometimes during the week after work, I guess. And what is she doing here? I asked. Damn it, too specific, too straight, too damn interested. Is she your friend or what? The bartender asked, moving away a little. Just a friend, I confirmed, but I alerted him, and he went to the other end of the bar. Damn it, a good 10 minutes passed before he returned to me and, unsurprisingly, he was no longer so friendly. More beer, please, I ordered, handing over a 10-pound note. Keep the change. To say his eyes lit up would be an exaggeration, but without a doubt I had his undivided attention. This Corinne, I asked. What is she doing here? What are she and her friend doing here? We stared at each other for what seemed like an eternity, and eventually he gave up. Is she your girlfriend or something, buddy? He asked. What's the interest? My wife, oddly enough, I decided to answer honestly. And I want to know what she does on her evening outings with her friends. He pulled away again, but the 50, placed on the bar, although my hand was still on it, opened it again. She comes with a redhead, like I told you, and they dance a little, talk, he informed me. Is everything as usual? How do married women usually behave in a place like this? I insisted. Many of them are married, he admitted. They flirt just as much as single girls, and sometimes even more. What about those two we're talking about? I would say, he began, hesitating before continuing. I'd say they're not much different from the rest. So they flirt with the guys here, huh? You could say that, he admitted, his eyes dropping to the bill still under my hand. How far does this flirting go? To this, he simply shrugged his shoulders and gave me a blank look. I moved the bill a little further up the bar, but still had my hand on it. I didn't need to say anything to encourage him. There's a lot going on here, he conceded. You know, all kinds of touching. It happens all the time in places like this. What does it mean? I clenched my teeth, feeling my insides clench. Are they groping her ass? He shrugged, and I assumed that meant yes. What about breasts? I wouldn't be surprised, agreed the bartender. They do all sorts of things when they drink and go on the dance floor. What else? That was the question, really, and he was silent again looking at the 50, which I was still holding at hand. I let go of the bill and slid it towards him. Well, I asked, as if summing up. Some girls go out with men, he admitted. I'm not saying these two do that, but I don't keep track of what all my clients are doing. Never saw them go out with any guys, but like I said. He left the rest unsaid for me to read as I saw fit. I pushed the bartender further, but he didn't want to say more, and frankly, the information I had already received made further investment a waste of time. I returned home. Was this still home? Yes, but not the same as before, and probably never will be like that again. Hello, darling, Corinne greeted me as I walked through the door. You're late. Did you work overtime? No, I answered as casually as possible. Went into the pub and drank 1 pint more than usual. It's okay, honey, she said, smiling and walking towards me, holding out his arms to hug me. Was it a coincidence, or was her sudden change in mood related to my actions that evening? I couldn't believe the bartender called her to warn her. On the other hand, I still couldn't believe that it was my wife he was talking about. Still, I hugged her and thought, not for the first time, how wonderful her firm breasts felt pressed against my chest. Then I remembered that there had apparently been a lot of other men enjoying this sensation lately, and the magic of the moment had been extinguished. I wasn't ready to sort things out with her yet, thinking that I needed a little more evidence. In the end, he didn't tell me that she left with other men, but he didn't tell me that she didn't. However, that didn't mean I couldn't rock her boat a little. Learned anything about why Neil was upset last week, Corinne? I asked, still holding her so she couldn't escape. I have no idea, she answered, almost too quickly, as if she was thinking through her answer in advance. Why should I know this? Well, Judy is your friend, I reminded her. You go out for drinks together every Wednesday. I thought maybe she mentioned something. Corinne tried to move away from me, but I held her tightly, not allowing her to leave and avoid my questions. She didn't tell me anything, Corinne replied curtly. Judy doesn't go around behind Neil's back, does she? I asked, upping the ante. How should I know? Corinne answered sharply, trying to escape from my embrace. Well, you go out with her on Wednesdays and come back late. I just thought maybe you noticed she was into some guy. Of course not, Rich, she blurted out. Why are you asking me such questions? So are you sure Judy doesn't sleep with someone behind Neil's back on Wednesdays? I increased the pressure. Are you sure about this? Get away from me, Corinne screamed, finally pushing me away. Stop treating me like that. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't accuse you of doing anything wrong, Corinne, I pointed out. We were talking about Judy, not you. Why should I think you did anything wrong? The look on her face spoke 1,000 words, and as her eyes began to water, she turned and ran into the kitchen. Damn it, it was true. The problem was that I still didn't know what exactly was true. Dinner that night was as quiet as you can imagine. I didn't accuse her of anything, and she didn't say anything, and for the next few days we continued our miserable existence as before. Wednesday came, and as usual, she got ready and went out with Judy. She wasn't dressed in any particular way. A nice dress, not too short and not too revealing, and a pair of regular high heels. She looked beautiful, very nice, just the way a husband might want his wife to dress when going somewhere without him. See you later, Rich, she called out to me. I won't be back too late today. I just nodded and went back to reading my book, wondering what not too late meant. Usually, she didn't return until midnight, when I was already in bed. I decided to stay up that night to see what time she would actually return, and for that matter, what state she would be in when she came home. Okay, I admit, Corrine had me tricked. Around 10:30, I heard the front door open, and my beautiful wife rushed into the house, looking as fresh as the morning dew. "Hello, darling," she called to me. "I missed you, so I came home early." I stood up and hugged her and told her I had missed her the last few weeks. I missed the way we were always together, the closeness we had, and that feeling had disappeared in recent months. Corrine cried in my arms and apologized for neglecting me, promising that things would be different from now on. We made amazing love that night. This was the first time in a long time. So, where does this leave us? I was pretty sure my wife had been flirting behind my back for the past few months. I wasn't at all sure that she would go to great lengths with other men, and to be honest, I thought she probably didn't. I didn't know for sure, but that's what it seemed to me. However, there is no doubt that she acted like a lonely girl, flirting, hugging, and possibly allowing other men to touch her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I was okay with it, and in fact, deep down, I was furious. But she was in danger and realized it. I really didn't want to ruin our still wonderful marriage if it could be avoided, so maybe I could turn a blind eye to what she did if it was in the past. And it looks like it's really over. Over the next 5 or 6 weeks, our marriage returned to what it was in the early stages. Little smiles, light touches, and lots of love. The girls still went out together as before, but they always returned before 11. About the 7th week into our idyllic rejuvenation, Corrine kissed me as she went out to meet Judy for their evening. "I hope you don't mind, darling," she smiled at me. "We may be back a little later than usual. It's one of the girls' birthdays today." "It's okay," I confirmed, smiling back at her. "Have a good time." I watched as she cheerfully walked out of the room, wearing a simple skirt that ended just above her knees and a knit top that covered her, but did not hide the beautiful shape of her full breasts. She looked beautiful, and I couldn't help but grin. Then I started thinking. She had never mentioned any other friends before. But it wasn't a mystery, or was it? Why did I again feel this unpleasant lump in my stomach that I had not felt for several weeks? I don't know why, but I picked up the phone and called Judy and Neil's home number. I hadn't spoken to him since that night in the pub a few weeks ago, and I wasn't sure how he'd greet me. "Hey, Neil, this is Rich," I greeted, Corin's husband. "Oh, hi, Rich," he replied, showing no unusual emotion. "How can I help?" "Just wanted to know if Judy was gone," I asked, not knowing what else to say and wanting me to think about it before calling. "Yes, she has already left," he replied. "Meet Corrine at the restaurant. Is this something important?" "No, nothing important," I said. "Is everything okay with you and Judy now?" It was a pretty straightforward question, but he sighed and said they had worked it out, even apologizing for being harsh with me that evening. I replied that it didn't matter. I hung up. Damn it, and strike it with thunder. They meet in a restaurant, right? Then why did Corrine just have dinner and tell me not 20 minutes ago that they were meeting at the George and the Dragon pub? Maybe this is a mistake. Maybe it's all completely innocent. I thought probably not. I thought about it for a while and decided I had nothing to lose by exploring a little, so I went upstairs, took a quick shower, and changed into clothes more comfortable for a night out. Half an hour later, I was at the Golden Flower, wondering if I was being stupid, but determined to continue. After another 5 minutes, I ordered a beer from the bartender. It was the same one I was talking to earlier, and I waited until he was free. "Have you seen Corrine and her red-haired friend lately?" I asked him, looking him straight in the eyes. It took him maybe 5 or 6 seconds to remember who I was, but only a couple more seconds to notice the 10 I was holding in my hand. "No, mate," he replied, taking my money. "To be honest, I haven't seen them in quite some time." It matched. Maybe I really was chasing a wild duck, but regardless, I decided to enjoy my pint, quite content to simply admire the women around me. However, They didn't offer me change, so I guess he was telling the truth. I finished my beer and went to the toilet. Hey, come on, that's what a man does. I came out of the toilet and, damn it, God, I almost ran into Corrine and Judy. Damn it. Honestly, I wouldn't have recognized them right away, and if they weren't so busy with 4 or 5 guys surrounding them, we would have just bumped into each other. I wonder why I didn't recognize them right away, right? Well, admit it. When your wife leaves the house dressed, well, normally, and then when you see her dressed like Corrine. Okay, let's start over. It was a dress. I can't call it anything other than a dress, although dresses traditionally cover a good portion of the body of the woman wearing them. It didn't close. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little. But still, having never seen my loving wife dressed like this before, it was a shock. I didn't know she had a dress like that, and Judy, that bitch, was wearing the same thing. Corrine must have changed her clothes somewhere after she left home. I wonder how she will be dressed when she returns home. The guys were literally hanging on to them, and although they pretended to push them away, it was obvious that they were enjoying the attention. "It's good to see you again, beautiful," one man said. "Where have you been, you two?" said another. "Join our table," suggested a third. By this point, I was already quite annoyed. I sat to the side, watching as the next suitors approached them, took them to the dance floor, and tried to undress them. They almost succeeded. Maybe not really, but every time Corrine and Judy laughed and giggled, enjoying how different parts of their bodies were exposed to the other men watching. I didn't like it. Let's be clear, okay? I didn't like it. I didn't laugh or giggle. I didn't enjoy it. I sat there seething with rage while my wife and her friend flirted with everyone who came near them, and there was no shortage of attention. Bitch, bitch. This was the same loving wife who kissed me goodbye this morning and smiled lovingly at me as she left the house this evening. Girlfriend's birthday. Where the hell is this friend? Have a drink at my expense. I looked up and saw the same bartender. Sorry, buddy, he continued, but I told the truth. I haven't seen them for a long time until today. I know, I replied. I believe you. What went wrong? He asked, looking at me with sympathy. She, I said, and we both nodded in agreement. I watched in disgust as my so-called wife fluttered from one man to another. She flirted shamelessly, flaunting her half-naked body, not paying attention to her status as a married woman. I watched as a succession of seemingly ordinary guys took advantage of their attention, groping their chests, butts, and yes, even trying to put their hands up their skirts, although they rebuffed the attempts. I was disgusted and just wanted to run away, but I had a better idea. I made my way through the crowd and headed towards Judy, ignoring what my wife was doing. In the end, Judy pushed some guy aside with a smile, and I deftly took his place. "Hello, handsome," she told me, her tongue slurring a little from the alcohol that everyone poured into her. "What do you need?" As expected, she had no idea who I was, barely bothering to look at me, more interested in what size I was. I grabbed her ass with one hand and her breasts with the other. She moaned with pleasure, and we weren't too far away from having sex on the floor. "Hi, Judy," I said calmly. "Having a good evening at the restaurant." It took a few seconds. It was funny to see how it got to her. "Rich," that's all she said, staring at me with a shocked expression on her face. "Nice breasts," I replied, squeezing one of them a little tighter and sliding my hand under her panties. "Get out, you bastard," she squealed when she realized exactly who was caressing her body. "What the hell are you doing?" "Just taking advantage of the market," I informed her, sliding my finger under the elastic band of her panties. "No more than the other guys here." Get out, you bastard," she screamed, pushing me in a panic. "Do you think my wife will be more available to me tonight than you, Judy?" With that, I stepped back, only to find myself surrounded by a group of aggressive men, boys, guys, whatever you want to call them. They all wanted to get the best out of my wife and her friend, and as a group, they were willing to deal with me. Beat me to a pulp if they wanted to, and at that moment, I would have gladly accepted that challenge. It was the bartender. It turned out his name was Jerry, and my 50 pounds and the rest of the money may have been the best investment of my life. Get away from him, everyone, I heard him shout. Leave him alone, or you'll have to deal with me. What friend? What comrade? Although he was only a friend for 50 pounds, I needed him at a time when I was about to be beaten. Jerry skillfully separated me from this motley group and directed me to the exit. Get out, buddy, while you're still alive, he wisely advised, pushing me out the door. What about me? I caught a glimpse of Judy urgently grabbing Corinne, pulling her out of the arms of some other lady's man and screaming at her. When she looked my way, our eyes met for a brief, stunning, instantaneous moment. I was shocked. I saw disappointment. I saw the shame on her face, and then I left. As I began to carefully pull out of the parking lot, I saw Corinne run out of the club. Some guy was clinging to her, trying to hold her back, and even as I watched, she hit him in the face so hard that she almost knocked him over. She saw my car and ran after me, having no hope of catching me, but not wanting to give up. It was only a few hundred yards later that I saw her fall to the ground in the middle of the road, and as I drove away, I left her there, crumpled on the asphalt. Not an easy situation, not for me and not for her. She didn't come home that night, but Neil called me around midnight. Hi, Rich, he began. Corinne is at our house. So what? I snapped. She wants to know if she can come home, he continued. Tell her to go to hell, I shouted into the phone and hung up. I left my phone switched off. Unpleasant situation, isn't it? What to do? I didn't care. I came home from work Friday night to find Corinne's car in the driveway. She returned home. But whose house? If everything was bad before then, well, you can imagine. She claimed she didn't sleep with anyone else, and that was probably true, but she just didn't understand. Why is life so difficult? The situation has worsened. After a few days, I began to hate her, even though I still loved her. I really didn't know what to do, except I knew she betrayed me not once but twice, and I couldn't accept it. I couldn't trust her anymore. I needed to talk to someone, but who? I had no brothers, no sisters, no close uncles, or even special friends. For the last few years, since we moved to this area, it's been me and she's Corinne. Stupid? Maybe. I found myself back in that same damned club. Don't ask me why, because I won't be able to give you an answer. All I knew was that all my problems seemed to start there, and there I had my own friend for 50 pounds. Stupid? Absolutely, but it worked for me. You're not the first husband to find yourself in this situation, he told me. It happens all the time. But what should I do about it? I asked despondently. He shrugged his shoulders in that vague way and shook his head. He seemed to have no more ideas than I did. He left to clean some glasses, but returned to me 10 minutes later. Rich, he began, by which time we were already on a first-name basis. Why don't you give her some of her own medicine? As he said this, he nodded his head towards the other end of the bar, and I noticed that she was sitting there, a very attractive young woman, clearly alone. She won't be interested in me, I said. She can't be more than 20-something. In my experience, Jerry replied seriously, it's not a problem. Plus, I'd say she's in her late 30s, if not older. Do you think she wants someone to pick her up? I asked uncertainty. I haven't talked to strange women for a long time. I'm sure so, Rich, he continued. She's just waiting for someone like you to show interest. Maybe she's married, I said, as if looking for an excuse, although, I must admit, I was very attracted to this. I'm almost sure of that too, Jerry confirmed. Maybe she's waiting for her husband, I continued to doubt. I highly doubt it, Rich, Jerry smiled, because I'm pretty sure that guy in the blue shirt sitting in that booth over there is her husband. What? You heard me, he replied. He came here about 20 minutes ago and sat down there, and she came in about 15 minutes later. She constantly glances at him, and his eyes are glued to her. You're kidding me, Jerry, I muttered. What are they up to? They're just having their fun. I haven't seen them before, but this happens here all the time. The couple comes in, pretends they don't know each other, and the guy gets a kick out of watching other guys hit on his wife. But what's going on? I asked, amazed at what he was telling me. Usually not much. The guy can dance close, maybe even touch her. A couple of kisses, but rarely anything more. Sometimes a woman can be persuaded to go out with another guy. It all depends on the couple and how far they are willing to go. I looked at the young dark-haired woman, almost gasping at what I saw. She was clearly dressed for hunting. Short black cocktail dress with a plunging neckline and sexy high heels. A little thin, maybe, but with good breasts. Great legs, and she showed them off while sitting on a bar stool. "How far do you think she's willing to go?" I asked Jerry. "Not very far," he suggested. "She's too nervous. Looks like they're doing this for the first time. I think you'll be safe, Rich. You flirt a little, but you don't get too involved." I looked at Jerry, amazed at how well he had caught my mood. I really wanted to flirt a little, but I didn't want it to go too far. But I thought again that's why he was such a good bartender. "Do you think she will pay attention to me?" I asked, still unsure and nervous. "This young guy just tried to hit on her and got nowhere," he said. She looked at the guy in blue and he shook his head. Maybe she just didn't like him. Perhaps he was too young. Maybe you'll have better luck. Damn it, is all this really happening before my eyes? Look, Jerry, I can't just go up and say hi to her. She can tell me to go to hell. Jerry laughed, then told me to leave it to him. He offered to bring her a drink and tell her it was from me. "How do you know she'll want a drink?" I asked. "I'm a bartender," he replied with a smile. "This is my job." Stupid question. I continued to sit while he prepared some drink that I didn't recognize and then went to the back of the bar. He offered the girl a drink and she looked my way, so I nodded my head in a friendly gesture. The girl took the drink, quickly glanced at the blue shirt, and nodded back at me, raising her glass in greeting. I was in the game. Damn it, my heart was pounding. I wasn't at all sure what I was getting myself into. Careful not to look like a complete fool, I hopped off my chair and headed to the bar to say hello. "Hello," she replied. "Thanks for the drink." "My name is Rich," I said. An original phrase, isn't it? "Hello, Rich," the girl answered. "I'm Cindy." So far, everything was going well, and I noticed Jerry giving me an approving thumbs up from behind the bar. And only then did I notice how nervous this girl was. She, of course, did not tremble, but it was not far from that. We chatted about this and that for a while, and she gradually relaxed, and so did I. Everything was going well between us, and I asked her to dance. I'm not Fred Astaire or anything, but I have a basic understanding of dance, and she was happy to follow my simple steps. She was a little tense in my arms at first, but she soon relaxed, and by the second dance, she was wonderfully pressed against me. Not too close, of course, just close enough. Damn, it felt so good. I wanted to kiss her, but the opportunity never came, so I just enjoyed the feeling of having a beautiful young woman in my arms. After the third dance, she suggested we go back to our seats, and once there, she excused herself and went to the ladies' room. And only when the blue one picked up a mobile phone did I realize. She went to the toilet to call him. To ask if he approves? I really didn't know, although everything so far indicated she approved, so I hoped he did too. This was confirmed when Cindy returned, smiled at me, and sat back down in her chair. Either by accident or on purpose, her already short skirt rode up even higher, revealing to me a long section of her slender legs. "Why are you smiling?" she asked when I couldn't hold back my laughter at the situation any longer. "What do you think?" I answered somewhat rudely. She was cute, but I had no intention of becoming a laughing stock for the two of them. To my surprise, Cindy slumped a little in her chair, and I thought I saw a tear in her eye, and I regretted speaking to her that way. "Sorry, Cindy," I finally said. "I didn't want to upset you, but it's all too obvious, you know. Listen to me. I speak as an experienced connoisseur, an urban dandy. Half an hour ago, Jerry explained everything to me, and before that I was a complete ignoramus." "I don't know what you're talking about," Cindy muttered, dissatisfied. "Are you saying that you don't know who the blue one is?" I asked. but a little softer. God, why did I say this? I made her cry. What does a man do in such cases? Of course, I went up and hugged her. I'm sorry, Cindy, I began to console her. I didn't mean to be mean to you. You're just like my damn husband, she sobbed into my shoulder. I soon found myself kissing her forehead, comforting her, speaking sweet words to her to try and calm her down. Let's dance again, I suggested, picking her up, realizing that sooner or later the blue would realize that something was wrong with her. Once on the dance floor, she pressed her soft body against me again and sobbed quietly throughout the first dance. What happened, Cindy? I demanded as I felt her begin to calm down. I'm not going to do anything you don't want. It's not about you, Rich, she said miserably. It's about that bastard Tom, the one I'm married to. Over the course of several minutes, I gradually extracted information from her, that everything she did that evening was against her will. Her husband Tom had been pushing her for 6 months to fulfill his fantasy of seeing her in bed with another man. The very idea made her sick, and she flatly refused, and then one night Tom came home drunk with 2 of his friends. Oh no, I responded immediately. Don't say he forced you to sleep with them. No, she sobbed into my shoulder. But after he teased and teased me for a while, I told him to fuck off and got up to go up to my bedroom. Well done, I congratulated her. But he grabbed me and dragged me onto the sofa, she cried. Then he held me down and unbuttoned my blouse while the other 2 watched. How can a husband do this? I wondered out loud, starting to get angry. It didn't end there, she continued, starting to sob again. He pulled me to my feet and told the others to unclasp my bra. And when he fell, he turned my back, holding my hands behind my back and my bare breasts sticking out for his damn dirty friends to grope. I hugged her to me, unable to find words for comfort. What could I say? I wanted to go up to the blue and hit him on the nose. Then Tom let me go, but when I tried to run away, one of the others grabbed my panties and pulled them down. By the time I broke away from him and ran to my room, my jeans were left behind and my panties were halfway down my thighs. Were they chasing you? No, she sobbed. I locked myself in the bedroom and didn't see Tom until the next morning. You should have reported this to the police, I offered, although not very useful advice. How could I? She burst out, and she burst into tears again. When she calmed down again, she explained that the next day her husband threatened that if she didn't play by his rules, he would invite his friends over again and have a group party with her as a prize. Finally, after some discussion, she agreed to go to a bar and let some stranger pick her up, since it seemed like a lesser evil than going all the way. Why don't you just leave him? I asked. Maybe we should, Cindy replied. But I think, to some extent, maybe I still love him. And what does he expect from you tonight? I asked her. Oh, I don't know, she answered sadly. Maybe go out with some guy or something. I just don't know. Why don't we do it right now, Cindy? She looked at me with an expression of disappointment, disbelief, even horror. Not sure how to describe it. I thought, that is, I hope that. Don't worry, I interrupted her. You're safe enough with me that freak of yours will think you're subservient to him. She reluctantly allowed herself to be led towards the exit, no doubt still not sure she can trust me. As we were leaving, I caught Jerry's eye, and he looked at me in surprise. I'll explain to him later. Finding my car, we leaned against it, and I told her to take her time and calm down again, handing her my handkerchief to wipe her eyes. Thanks, Rich, she muttered. That was all the gratitude I needed. Soon Cindy leaned against me, and I automatically hugged her, as I convinced myself, like an upset child. We stood holding each other for a while and found it unusually comfortable as I felt her relax more and more. Lowering my head, I lightly kissed her forehead. It seemed like a very natural thing to do, but perhaps it surprised Cindy, and she raised her head to look at me, and I found myself still kissing her, but this time on the lips. It was supposed to just be a kiss, but it lingered just a second or two too long. We looked at each other for the briefest of moments, then Cindy brought her lips to mine again, Our second kiss became more and more passionate as she pressed her gorgeous, slender body against me, and I responded the only way I could. The straps of her dress slipped from her shoulders, and I confirmed my earlier suspicions that she had nothing underneath. It happened. I didn't want it, but that's how it happened. "I'm sorry, Cindy," I whispered to her. "I didn't want this to happen." "Oh, Rich. Oh, Rich," she moaned and kissed me even more passionately than before. I was in a quandary. Yes, of course, I wanted to drag her into my car and have sex. But what would that do for me? Thoughts about my wife's behavior raced through my head, and I began to feel insecure, even guilty. "I think we better wear your dress, Cindy," I suggested. "Yes, Rich. Thank you, I think we should," she replied, but made no immediate effort to hide her luscious breasts from my view or my touch. Then it was all over. Just like that. Cindy moved away from my arms, stood with a nervous smile on her face while I examined her half-naked beauty, then almost reluctantly lifted her dress and assumed a respectable appearance. "Thank you, Rich," she repeated. "It couldn't have been easy." "That's not true," I confirmed, already half regretting stopping. "I better get back to Tom," she muttered. "He'll want to know what happened." "What will you tell him, Cindy?" "I don't know," she replied. "I think that's all he wants to hear. I'll fix it." We looked at each other. Cindy may have wondered what it would have been like if we had met before Tom came along. I know I was. "Can I see you again?" I asked. "I'm not sure, Rich," she replied. "Maybe it would be better if we didn't do this." "It won't end here, Cindy. Tom isn't going to stop, you know. He's not going to suddenly change." "I know," she sobbed, tears streaming down her cheeks again. "I'll just have to deal with it somehow." "At least give me your phone number," I asked. "Maybe I could help." "I can't, Rich," Cindy told me. "I don't dare, but maybe if you give me yours." And that's how we left it. I gave her my phone number, and after one last kiss, she turned around and walked back towards the entrance of the bar, leaving me standing there feeling so hopeless and alone. One last look back, a sweet smile, and she was gone. Gone from my life forever. I sadly got into the car on the way home. There I had to face my own problems. "We can't go on like this." I'm not sure if it was a question or a statement, but either way my wife was right. Life at home was terrible, and we both studiously avoided each other. Neither of them was ready to take the first step. We didn't even share a bedroom anymore, and she only reluctantly cooked for me. "Okay," I agreed. "What can you say about your behavior?" "Don't you dare talk to me like I'm a little schoolgirl," Corrine responded angrily. "I told you over and over again that I didn't allow any of them to have sex with me." "So what do you call what I saw you do that night?" I demanded hotly. "I allow other men to kiss and caress you. I act more like a bitch than like my wife." "Damn you, Rich," she spat at me. "You are so good. What's wrong with me having a little fun if it doesn't cause you any harm? I've been a little housewife all damn week, so why can't I let my hair down? So I let some guys feel my breasts, so what? I like it, and they like it, and you're no worse for it. I never held you back when you did it. I wanted to make love." Our rational discussion seems to have deteriorated somewhat. Perhaps there was some logic here somewhere, but I didn't see it. "So you think you can let other men use my wife's body to get a thrill?" "Yes, why not?" Corrine almost screamed at me. "This is my damn body, and I will choose who feels it and who doesn't. You haven't been very nice to me lately, so if you don't like it, you can go to hell." "What if I acted like you, Corrine?" I asked her, trying to control my anger. I try to reason with her. I try to make her see sense. "How would you feel if I went out and kissed some girl I picked up in some pub?" "You," Corrine grinned at me. "You're with another woman. You wouldn't have the courage, you pathetic weakling. If another woman hit on you, you'd run a mile." Brother, this shot hit the mark, didn't it? Memories of the previous evening came flooding back to me as I remembered how wonderful it felt to hold the bare breasts of another beautiful young woman in my hands. I thought about telling her about it to shock her, but I didn't do this and remained silent. I think it was the right decision and as a result, I remain innocent. It's not that I felt like what I did could compare to Corinne's behavior or her attitude for that matter. I don't think this conversation is going to get us anywhere, Corinne, I told my angry wife, trying to calm the situation. Yes, damn it, it's not you, you spineless loser, my wife screamed at me, her eyelid falling all the way back. I'm meeting Judy again tonight, and I may have cause for concern. Now look, Corinne, But it was no use as she turned on her heel in rage and stomped back to her bedroom, slamming the door with such force that the entire house shook to its foundations. Oh God, what to do? I went and poured myself one of my special cognacs and sat down in my favorite chair, waiting to see if Corinne would calm down. I really had no idea what she would actually do. I really doubted that I even knew my wife. Don't wait for me, Rich, Corinne said angrily, going down the stairs. I may or may not return home today. I looked at her, trying to reason with her, and was stunned. Corinne, my wife, was dressed like a real prostitute. If I thought that the dress she wore the other night was revealing, then what she wore now looked simply disgusting in my eyes. 4 or 5-inch heels, red, high. A tight black miniskirt, so short that it barely covered her private parts, and I could only imagine what it revealed from behind. You look like an easy target, I said sadly. I suddenly felt a strange calm. I don't know why or how, but I felt it. If you leave the house like this, and with this attitude, Corinne, I said in a calm voice, it's all over between us. Our marriage is over. I won't be here when you return. To hell with you, Rich, she continued to shout at me. You've been holding me back for so many years, and now it's my turn to have fun. I'll kiss whoever I want, and maybe even sleep with whoever I want, and there's nothing you can do about it. Looking at her, I wondered where our love had gone. Until recently, this woman was everything to me, and I was ready to do anything for her. I loved her madly. I wondered when she stopped loving me, because now I just couldn't believe she was still doing it. And I simply could not understand where this contempt for me suddenly appeared in her. Okay, Corinne, I said, deciding to pull the rug out from under her. Go then. Have a good time. Look both ways when crossing the road. What do you mean, Rich? Corinne asked, her mouth open in surprise, perhaps realizing that she had gone too far. Is that all you have to say? No, one more thing, Corinne, I added. Why don't you go to hell? Having said this, I got up and went to the kitchen. No particular reason, just for effect. I leaned against the sink, took a deep breath, and waited to see what she would do next, half afraid that she might come after me to apologize. But no, she must have thought about it, because it was only 5 or 6 minutes later that I heard her heels click on the parquet floor in the hall, then the front door slam. She'll have to check the foundation if she continues like this. This is all, and it took longer to pack than I thought, but within an hour I was out and in the car, heading to the nearest hotel where my company had an account, and soon I had a room booked. I only rented it for one night because I honestly had no idea what my plans would be for the next few days, let alone the future. I still couldn't believe that I had left home Wyoming. About an hour later, my cell phone rang, and I opened it to see that it was Corinne calling. I debated whether or not to respond, but in the end, I decided that I would have to face it. Hello, Corinne. What do you want? Where the hell are you, Rich? I returned home, and you are not here. I said I won't be there. It was your choice, Corinne. Stop being stupid, Rich. Where are you? When will you return home? Not soon, Corinne. Have a good night, and maybe we'll talk in the morning. No, wait, Rich, I want. But I had already interrupted the conversation and turned off the phone. The stupid woman still thought twice about her actions and returned home to make peace with me. Or maybe she couldn't find any strange men to spend the evening with and gave up. How was I supposed to know? I'll let her worry until the morning. The next day I went to work, and of course I couldn't just turn off my work phone. By 10 o'clock in the morning, Corinne had called me 4 times, and I had exhausted all my excuses with my secretary, so I had to talk to her, promising to meet her at home in the evening. I can't say I was looking forward to it. Sorry, Rich. I shouldn't have left you last night, she greeted me, holding out her arms. And I certainly shouldn't have talked to you like that. Well, this time I didn't buy it, and when she walked toward me, I moved to the other side of the couch. She looked depressed. We need to talk about this, honey, she continued, following me around the room. I think you misunderstood everything. It's not as serious as you think. You think letting other men touch your breasts isn't serious, Corrine? I asked. I already told you, Rich, she replied, avoiding my question. I didn't let any of them sleep with me. No one but you has slept with me since we got married. But probably several of them were still able to put their hands in your panties. This took her by surprise. She hesitated, perhaps wondering whether to lie or not, but to be fair, she confessed anyway, more or less. Maybe one or two, Corrine finally admitted, not daring to meet my gaze. Okay, Corrine, I continued. Was it one or two? She just looked at me, not knowing what to say. Well, one or two, I insisted. And how many times each? Well, maybe it was a little more than two, honey. But I promise it didn't happen that often. So we are talking about 20 or 30 and not one or two, right? She clearly didn't like this conversation and tried to change the subject. I tormented her for a bit and then let her change the subject. How are we going to get through this, Rich? She finally asked. I don't want to live without you, and I'm sure you still love me. Strange wording, but I decided to ignore it. What are you suggesting, Corrine? I asked. If you come home, honey, then I'm ready to compromise, was her first offer. I'll go out less often and maybe won't dress so revealingly. I just sat and looked at her in silence. How do you like it, honey? Have we agreed? She asked almost ingratiatingly. So, strangers' hands will be in your panties once every 2 weeks and not once a week. Is this what you are suggesting? Don't be so rude, Rich, she replied, her face contorted with anger. I promise I won't allow it anymore. I don't want anyone to do this. I drank too much, and I admit that it was too much. What about the breasts? Will it still be in the public domain as before? No, Rich. I promise I'll be more careful. How about you don't go out with Judy at all? I suggested, clinging to the illusory hope that everything could work out for us. Or if you go out, will you go to a restaurant or to the cinema? Damn it, Rich, Corrine snapped back. Don't you trust me? Can't you give me some freedom so I can relax and have fun? She just didn't understand, did she? For God's sake, go and have as much fun as you want, dear, I answered quietly. I'll move into the guest room and you can do whatever you want. The conversation is over. Why did I have to move out of our house if she was wrong? Our marriage was most likely over too, but Corrine didn't realize it at the time. Our life together continued about the same as before, and perhaps even a little better. At least we talked to each other, and my meals were no longer served as if they were poison. Corrine even started doing my laundry again. She didn't go out with Judy that Wednesday. What a wonderful wife she was. A week has passed. I was at work and my cell phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Hi, this is Chris, I replied. Hi, Chris, I heard a woman's voice. This is Cindy. Can we talk? Oh my God, it's not that I've forgotten Cindy or how wonderful she felt in my arms, but I've almost come to terms with the fact that I'll never see her again. I already had enough problems in my life to add her to them. Of course, Cindy. How can I help? Everything is fine. Okay, I'll admit it, I'm a wimp when it comes to a beautiful woman in distress. That's a little cheeky, Rich, she continued. But can I ask you a favor? Why do women do this? Why do they ask if they can ask for a favor? If you agree, then you have already half agreed to what they are going to ask. Of course you can, Cindy, I replied. What's happened? I told you I was a weakling. It's about Tom, my husband, she said. The story I told him about what happened last night calmed him down for a while, but now he wants more. How much more? Stupid question, isn't it? He wants to see me have sex with another man, she blurted out, her embarrassment visible even over the phone. Wait, Cindy. I started to protest, but she interrupted me. No, Rich, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not asking you to do this. I would never do this. I told him I would go and do it with another man and then tell him about it. It's not exactly what he wants, but it will at least calm him down a little until I decide what to do next. So what exactly do you want from me, Cindy? I was hoping that you could meet me somewhere, in some public place, so he can see me leaving with you and assume the worst. You can leave right after this if you don't want to stay with me, and I'll go to the movies or something, and then come home alone and tell him some story. I thought about it. Poor woman. Why do some people have to put up with such husbands? She sounded desperate and was probably afraid that he would bring his buddies to force her into sex. What is she going to do in the long term? How about I invite you to dinner, Cindy? I suddenly suggested. There's no point in ruining the evening. She seemed pleased with my proposal. So, I chose Wednesday quite intentionally because I knew Corinne would be outside with Judy. She left early in a great mood, even tried to kiss me on the cheek. At least she was dressed rather modestly, although, of course, that's exactly what she looked like the time I caught her. "I won't be late, honey," she shouted to me. "You will see that it will not harm you at all." She smiled at me, I smiled back. She still just didn't get it, did she? She hardly noticed that I was also about to leave, and soon I followed her. "Hey, Rich," a voice said as I looked around the bar. Damn it, Cindy looked beautiful when I first met her, but standing there looking at her that evening I was stunned. She wasn't just cute, she was beautiful, and she was wearing a stunning little blue dress. "You look different today," I told her. "Today I dressed for a man I really like," she answered, smiling. "That time I came under pressure." "You look great, Cindy," I said. "I will be pleased to spend this evening with you." With these words, I leaned down to kiss her on the cheek, but she grabbed me and gave me a wonderful kiss on the lips. "Wow," I burst out when we finally broke away from each other. "It was for Tom," she explained, pointing carefully behind her. "But if you really believed it, then you're a fool." Unnoticed, I glanced over her shoulder and noticed Blue, although he was wearing a brown sweater that evening doesn't sound the same at all. "Let's do it again for his benefit," I suggested, and this time we pressed ourselves against each other, and I remembered how wonderful her slender body felt next to mine. "Wonderful. Let's go," I suggested, satisfying my first desire. "Where?" she asked with a playful sparkle in her eyes. "Does it matter?" "No," Cindy answered seriously. "Wherever you go, I will follow you." It sounded like she was about to jump on my trusty steed and ride off into the sunset with me, but in reality we just walked about 100 meters down the street to the Italian restaurant I had pre-booked. Not quite as romantic, but still very nice, and we had a wonderful dinner with a bottle of Chianti and chatted like old friends. Can you imagine? I found a girl who supported Arsenal, the best football club in the world. Her whole family supported Arsenal, so there was nothing more to say. We were having a great time and went to a new bar in town where I danced with the most beautiful girl in the room. What could be better and what could go wrong? You guessed it. My wife, Corinne, walked into the bar with Judy and a group of men accompanying them. She was wearing the same dress, but she had hiked up the skirt 6 inches and undone most of the buttons on the front. I looked at Corinne, then at Cindy, and wondered what I even saw in my wife. She was pretty, sure, but she couldn't compare to Cindy in terms of class and style. It's time to confess to Cindy, it's not easy. We haven't even discussed whether I'm married or not. "What happened, Rich?" Cindy asked me before I could say anything to her. "The woman over there with that group," I said. "Unfortunately, this is my wife." "The redhead or the one that looks like a bitch?" Cindy asked with genuine bewilderment. "Oh, how painful it is. I wouldn't want to be on her bad side." "Yes, that blonde," I admitted reluctantly. "You poor thing," she commented, without taking her eyes off Corinne. "How did you, such a good guy, end up with someone like that?" If a man had said that, I probably would have hit him already, but Cindy made it sound completely different, and I just swallowed and said nothing. "You know what her reputation is in the city, don't you?" Cindy continued. This comment of hers immediately caught my attention. "Do you know her?" I asked. "No, but my damn husband Tom knows," Cindy replied with an accusatory tone. "And he wants me to act like her." Oh God, how small the world is. It seems Kareen hasn't told me the whole truth. Is she cheating on me? I asked nervously, feeling like a fool who should learn about his wife from his own friend. Is the Pope Catholic? Cindy replied. Normally this would have been funny, but now it wasn't funny and Cindy apologized. I briefly explained my situation to Cindy and her look said it all. We both had our problems, but I at least wasn't sure what to do next. Come on, Cindy said, abruptly lifting me from my seat, and before I realized what was happening, she was already leading me to the group surrounding Kareen and Judy. Hi, guys, my companion said loudly, standing in front of the whole company. Everyone turned, and if any of them recognized her, no one showed it. The only thing that was obvious was that she clearly outshone the other two women. You girls want to find out what a real man is and not mess around with these losers? Cindy boldly introduced me. Well, this shocked everyone, and for a moment I thought I was going to be in trouble. I was ready, but I underestimated Cindy. Corrine, she said to my wife, who stood with her mouth open, looking at the two of us. If you're not going to appreciate him, then I will. With these words, she smiled at everyone, kissed me on the lips, then took my arm and led me to the exit of the bar. I felt her hips sway gracefully as she walked next to me, and a last glance at Kareen showed that her face was still in shock as chaos erupted around her. Damn it, what fun it was. We had just gotten to the car, laughing until we dropped, when Cindy's phone rang, and I heard her talking. Yes, hi, Tom. I'm busy. What do you want? No, Rich isn't here right now, so we can talk if you insist. When she said this, she looked at me and winked. Yes, I might have sex with him. She winked at me again. What could that mean? No, I won't bring it home so you can watch. No, Tom, I won't do this. I don't care what you threaten, Tom. I won't do this. Well then, get the hell out, you pervert, and don't wait for me tonight. With that, she closed the phone and threw it into the back seat. I don't want to go back to him anymore, Rich, she said firmly. There is no future for me there. What are you going to do, Cindy? I asked. Looks like I'm in the same situation as you. Is there a place we can go? Good question. How about Brighton? I suggested. Brighton? Cindy almost squealed in surprise. You mean Brighton by sea? That's absolutely true, I confirmed, equally surprised by my sudden proposal. I know a great little hotel, and I just need a few days off. Let's go, Cindy decided, and I took the next left, and soon we were speeding along the road to a famous resort, where we spent the next 4 days getting to know each other better, much better. Yes, Kareen and I were divorced within 6 months, and she didn't put up much of a fight when it came to dividing the property. She soon married again, but this marriage did not last long. I think she has truly realized how messed up she is in her life, but also understands that the solution has nothing to do with me. Judy and Neil, they continue to live their lives, but are no longer friends with Kareen. I see them from time to time, although Neil and I never became close friends. Me and Cindy. No, it didn't work out for us in the long run. The 15-year age difference was too much. That's not to say we didn't have a great 9 to 10 months of constant sex, but eventually I just couldn't keep up the pace any longer. She is now dating Jerry, my former 50-pound friend, who is now a real friend. It turned out that he is not just a bartender, but half the owner of the establishment, so Cindy is in good hands. I'm happy for her. Tom, I don't know. He simply disappeared from the horizon. I thought about introducing him to Kareen, but why would I? Angelica? Oh, of course you don't know about Angelica. Let's just say I met her at the tennis club I joined to get in shape, and now she's the love of my life. Together with her charming 4-year-old daughter Sophie, whom I begin to consider more and more mine every day. And don't forget about young Rich Jr., my own son, who will celebrate his first birthday in a couple of weeks. Life goes on. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.